Mile Shopper, here to bring you the best MMA bets from this Saturday slate. Filling in for Pete the Heat. Pete was feeling a little under the weather, and we were thinking about canceling the video. I said, no, don't do that. I'll step in. I'll cover for Pete. We got to give the people their betting picks for the week. So do me a favor, and also because Pete requested, he said the only way that'll make him feel better is if you guys like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So do that for the sake of Pete. His health depends on it. Also, if there's any bets you really like for the UFC this weekend, let me know below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys are betting on. As for this card, the main event, Dern versus Yao Xiaonan. A little bit of a weak card if we're being honest, but any card is fun as long as we have some betting angles to it. And getting into this card also, one thing that was a little annoying about it is my favorite fight of the entire card, the one that I had the biggest bet on. It was a bet on Tabitha Ricci to beat Jessica Penne, and I was all excited to record this video and tell you guys about why you should be betting that fight and how the line had moved from Ricci minus 190 to around minus 230, and I bet the opening line, and then the fight gets canceled right before. So I was right about to record, and I had to go back to the drawing board and find some other fights to bring to the table for you guys. Also, if you wanted to go to this event, you are not allowed to. Mark Zuckerberg rented out the Apex for this event, and I didn't want any other people in there because I guess he's too cool to be next to people that don't fly private jets. That was his request. Only people that fly private. No people that fly public are allowed in here. So whatever reason here, UFC rented out the Apex to Mark Zuckerberg, and there's going to be no media there. No fans. Should make for an interesting dynamic. But all that aside, I've got some MMA bets for you guys, and I'm about to break them down right here. These are the best bets for the Saturday UFC slate. For my first bet of the card, I'm taking a stab at an underdog, Brendan Allen plus 105 to an outright against Krzysztof Jotko. And to be clear, I think it's perfectly reasonable if this is a tightly lined fight, but just because of activity, I do give a little bit of a lean towards Brendan Allen, because one thing that has been a mark against Krzysztof Jotko in a lot of his fights is he's just not very active. Not a lot generally tends to happen in his fights. He only lands 3.02 significant strikes per minute. Very sound defensive fighter, so doesn't absorb very many strikes, only 2.26. But he's also been in a lot of stylistic matchups that I think have been favorable to him. So Jotko is really good takedown defense. And then generally some of the matchups he's been in recently, he's been able to keep them up on the feet and then has just been able to outland his opponents ever so slightly. But he's also fought against opponents that don't land strikes at very high rates. So his recent fights, win over Gerald Meerschaert, who only landed 37 significant strikes. Mirsha Serkinov landed 41. He lost the fight against Sean Strickland. And that's the fight that I think this could kind of mirror, the Sean Strickland-Krzysztof Jotko fight, because Brendan Allen throws it as a higher clip. Then Eric Anders is known as a really low output striker, only landed 41 significant strikes. Marc-Andre Barrio landed 39. So we're seeing what happens. We see Jotko in these matchups against guys that just don't throw a lot, and that plays into Jotko's favor because he also doesn't throw a lot. So the fights are close. He ends up winning by decision. But if we're seeing him against a guy like Brendan Allen, who throws considerably more volume than Jotko, so Brendan Allen lands 4.15 significant strikes per minute compared to 3.02 for Jotko. Also striking accuracy, 42% for Jotko compared to 55% for Brendan Allen. And that's where I think the difference in this fight is going to be. Jotko is not a fighter who typically knocks out his opponents, although Jotko has had a questionable chin of his own in the past. So I do think that that is a viable path to victory for Brendan Allen, is clipping Krzysztof Jotko on the feet and finishing him, because we've seen Jotko finished by Brad Tavares. We've seen him finished by Uriah Hall in the UFC. We've seen him finished by Magnus Kadenblad. That was back in 2014. But either way, he's been finished 3 times, and there are some durability concerns when it comes to Krzysztof Jotko that I don't really have as much with Brendan Allen. And then also in terms of Jotko's winning fights, he has one career win in the UFC by finish, and that was in 2016 against Tamden McCrory. So I don't see any realistic path to Jotko finishing Brendan Allen. And if this fight is going to go to the judges' scorecards, I just have to favor the fighter that's much more active and throws a lot more output. So Brendan Allen, I think he should be a slight favorite where he's an underdog. We're getting plus money on Brendan Allen. Give me that bet on the money line, Brendan Allen plus 105. Next bet I'm looking at, it is Sadiq Youssef. And by the way, everybody likes Sadiq Youssef. It's not like I'm going on a limb by picking Sadiq Youssef to win. He's the biggest favorite on the card by a mile. We've got Youssef currently sitting at, depending what book you look at, anywhere from minus 900 to minus 1200 to win. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out, all right, how can we bet Youssef and get a somewhat reasonable price tag? And something that stands out to me is minus 164 for him to win inside the distance. Now, there are a bunch of different books with different lines on this. Minus 164 is the best. So make sure you're doing line shopping and getting the best line available. We currently have an offer with BetMGM. They're the sponsor of today's video. If you sign up at BetMGM and click on the link below, you get up to $1,000 risk-free bet on the first bet you place. So if the first bet loses up to $1,000, they're going to refund it with free bets. But talking about this bet, where we have Sadiq Youssef, like I said, massive money line favorite. It's unplayable. You can't bet a UFC fighter when they're at minus 1,200. But I see this being a fight where Youssef has the advantage everywhere against Don Shainis, who's making his UFC debut. And also, we just have a big experience gap in favor of Sadiq Youssef, who has now fought 6 times in the UFC. He's 5-1 in those fights. And by the way, to get into the UFC, he had a Contender Series win over Mike Davis. And Mike Davis is legit. He's also fighting on this card. And I think Mike Davis is a
Welcome into the Stokastic.com live for lock show. Get ready for today's UFC Vegas number 61, which goes down in 1 hour from now from the UFC Apex. No fans, no media in attendance, but we're going to watch this card live on ESPN Plus. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. We are sponsored by Odd Shopper. Of course, we're going to break down this DFF slate for you. You got any questions, you know what to do. Hit us up in the chat, whether right here on YouTube, or if you're a Stokastic Plus member, you can hit that question up over in Discord. I already got some questions coming in on Discord. We'll get to those as we do go on. But of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, it feels like it's been a long time since I've seen you, bro.
Yeah, for sure. The dynamic duo has returned, and I know everybody's been missing Jason. I definitely have as well. Happy to see that you're okay. Chat just asked, are you alive? Thankfully, everything's okay with you and the family. And I know everybody was really, really worried. So, dodged a bullet. And yeah, here we are, and a decent card. But again, I apologize ahead of time. I'm feeling a little under the weather, guys, but I'll do my best not to sound terrible.
Yeah, man, everything is well on our end. Me and my wife, we when the storm looked like it was coming straight to Tampa, we dodged out of town and came back home on Thursday. And literally, like when you and Josh were doing the strategy shows, when we got home and checked the house out. The one thing about where we're at in 2022 with technology is I was able to monitor my house the whole time, so I knew if my security cameras were on, I had power at the house, so I was feeling pretty. Just some down tree limbs, nothing too crazy, but yeah, man, it was all good, man.
Yeah, good. And we got Matt Riley saying Michael Jordan flu game show for Pete. Yeah, let's hope because I got a lot of money riding on this slate, and even though it's a slate I absolutely hate, I wasn't really going to play, but I always feel compelled to play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing these shows, I have to play. I'm always doing it from a betting standpoint, but from a DFS standpoint, some cards are just completely ugly. So here we are.
And there's obviously, you got any questions, like I said, hit those up in chat. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. That really does help us a lot as well. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know a show is live here on the channel. And of course, if you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall, if you're not a premium member, today's free premium day in tools is MLB Top Stacks, the last weekend of MLB action. So be sure to check out that over there if you're looking for MLB DFS coverage. Of course, coming up here later on today, we got the MLB Live 4 Lock show. That'll be at 6 o'clock Eastern time. But I was watching you and Josh on a strategy show, and I had this idea where I wanted to start the show today is, we get a constant question we'll always get. It's a 1v1 situation of last fighter in. I was like, you know what? Let me come up with 3 scenarios for Pete, and let's see if me and you are on the same page. So right. Last fighter in. We're trying to put that last fighter in over on DraftKings. Trevin Jones or Guido Canetti?
Listen, all these options suck, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to go.
But these are realistic options that people are looking at. This, because what I try to do is I was trying to make it where these salaries, they were in that same general area where you're going, okay, who is my punt play? Who am I going to? And when I look at these 2 options here, Pete, I look at from the Canetti side of the equation. is you've got a fast starter that he's going up against Randy Costa. I'd like Randy Costa to win the matchup, but if he can survive that 6 to 7 minute storm from Randy Costa, and look, both of us, we both know Randy, on a personal level. Obviously, your coach works with him when he's up there in the Northeast, training down at Kill Cliff FC, but we know he's a striker, but what happens if the fight makes it to, say, minute 7, minute 8? That's where Guido can take up. On the Trevin Jones side of the equation, to me, it's about keeping this fight on the feet. And if he can keep the fight on the feet, Pete, I like his chances.
Yeah, so in that 1v1 situation, Trevin Jones or Guido Canetti, it's Trevin Jones for me all day long. I actually think that he possesses the power to knock out Raoni Barcelos, despite the vast skill gap between them. I really do think that when he's swinging those hands, he's been lucky inside the UFC. We've seen him hit and hurt Mario Batista. In addition to that, Timur Valiev. So he's winning fights he shouldn't win, but he really is dangerous on the feet. And I have to tell you that Raoni Barcelos is a guy who I was really high on early in his UFC career and, outside the UFC as well. But I actually think that he's taken a ton of damage, and the one hole in his game, if I was coaching against him, is that he seems susceptible to hooks. He really does. And that's kind of like Trevin Jones' specialty. So in that 1v1 situation, despite the cardio concerns of Randy Costa in rounds 2 and 3 and the grappling concerns, I think it's a clear Trevin Jones play for me.
All right, option number 2. Got Yan Jinan in the main event. She's 7,100 on DK.
Yeah.
Second option, Alexei Oleinik at 7,500 on DK. This one's an interesting one to me because, I feel like the safer side of this, Pete, is to go with Yan Jinan just because 5 rounds to work with. If she can keep the fight on the feet, even in a decision loss, that ceiling's still a nice low ceiling. Alexei Oleinik, boy, you talk about boom bust. Yeah. Alexei Oleinik is like if we had a Hall of Fame of boom bust players in UFC DFS, I feel like Alexei Oleinik is probably in the top 5.
Yeah, he's quite terrible, but quite skilled at the same time. He's so weird, and he's so unorthodox that he can catch people off guard. And traditionally, it's because of his submission skills. I mentioned on the strategy show how I think it's going to be pretty difficult to submit Ilir Latifi because of his lack of a neck. I mean, he's like a bowling ball, and it's the truth. Everybody's saying the same thing this week. But I actually think that Alexei Oleinik can hit and hurt Ilir Latifi as long as he survives the early storm. We've seen Ilir Latifi's cardio come into question. So in all of these 1v1 situations, it comes down to what type of player are you? Are you a safe player? Because clearly Yan Xiaonan is the safer play. Women's MMA, likelihood to go longer than most fights, but I'm not that type of player. I'm going to go out on my shield and try for the biggest boom bust plays there are. So for me, in that 1v1 situation, it would be Alexei Oleinik, even if I have to close my eyes.
All right, option number 3. And for GPPs, I would go Oleinik just because of that 100-point upside. If it was a cash situation, I would go Yan Jinan. I think Yan Jinan's kind of when you're looking to save salaries today, she's kind of a safe play in cash. Option number 3 are 2 fighters who are both under 7K. You got Francisco Trinaldo at 6,900, and then you got Don Shainis at 6,700. Don's a guy that I talked to probably, 3-4 months ago, and he was basically, his mindset was, I'm preparing myself for a short notice fight, and I just gotta be ready for that call.
Yeah. So I think when it comes down to, Josh and I talked about this from a likelihood and probability of winning, it's clearly Francisco Trinaldo. It's clearly Francisco Trinaldo. But even in a win, I just don't think he scores well. Traditionally, he hasn't scored well. It's rare for him to find a finish. He is not the best DFS play. And I know that nobody wants to get behind the massive, biggest underdog on the entire card in Don Shainis. But because of the ownership flocking to Francisco Trinaldo, who could score poorly, I would just rather, again, take a boom bust approach and try to get Don Shainis, because I really do think that his grappling is something that, can have an effect on his opponent, but he has to be very careful of not getting knocked out. And, I like the fact that he's training with James Krause, and hopefully he can just survive the early barrage and win some minutes, and even in a loss, possibly come close to scoring well enough for us.
Yeah, he is someone that decided to leave the Northeast just looking to get new training partners, and ended up going there to Glory MMA and Fitness. In terms of, like you mentioned about Don Chance, like to me, he's one of two fighters on this card that I look at as leverage plays in terms of ownership, just because Don's just getting no ownership. And of course, if you're a Stokastic Plus member, you can get access to that. Literally right here on the screen that's right below me, I got that top fighter tool because that is a tool that I'm using to help develop my lineups. The other one to me has got to be Guido Canetti. Under 12% ownership, and obviously even though I do like Randy to go out there and win, the concern I do have with Randy is the fact of fight hits second, third round. Of course, Guido is not exactly, look, when you're older than me, you're old. You're old to be a fighter. Let's just be honest about it.
I went back and I watched a lot of Randy Costa. Obviously, I know Randy really well. When you look back and you see how he was performing against Adrian Yanez, and now you kind of like put him in the cage with Guido Canetti, there's no way that he should lose to Guido Canetti. But the issue is that his pacing is a problem. He goes way too hard in round one. His grappling is poor. I really think he needs to spend more time on it, because if he can force people to stand up with him with a slower pace, he can really pose problems. He's big for the division. He really is big for the division. He's very tall and rangy. I like Randy. I hope Randy does well, but there's clear concerns. And when you saw Randy go up there against Tony Kelly, those concerns kind of reared its ugly head again. And, TKO'd in the second round. Yanez ended up surviving round one and put the pressure back on him and getting a finish in round two, and pretty similar to his debut against Brandon Davis. So it's like, it comes down to, if you have any levels of quit in you, Randy Costa is probably going to have a field day. But if you are able to deal with the adversity well, Guido Canetti has gone to close decisions in the past as well, against Mana Martinez, who I think is equally as dangerous as Randy Costa, probably less to a degree from a knockout standpoint. But I'm getting to Guido Canetti just because of the takedown potential. He attempted 7 against Hugo Viana. He went 4 of 7. And then a couple fights, he's attempted 4 against Marlon Vera. He took Marlon down 2 out of 4 times. So there's a path there where it's just complete takedown city. It comes down to what happens first. Does he get knocked out prior to it?
Now, there are 2 fights that I have labeled as I want to limit exposure on, and I feel like you are going to be in agreement. Maybe you have a third fight, but to me, the clear 2 fights that I want to limit exposure to, the co-main event, Randy Brown and Francisco Trinaldo. Old man Trinaldo just seems to find a way to get it done, and you just know it's, more times than not, it's not going to be a great score. And the other one I don't want to get to is Death, Taxes, and Christoph Jocko goes to decision. He's taking on Brennan Allen. If I'm playing a side in that fight, I'm taking Brennan Allen because of the potential upside. But that's a fight. Those are 2 fights for me I want to limit my exposure on.
I mean, I do agree with you from the co-main standpoint. I think that, Randy Brown is really priced up at 9,300. So he needs to get multiple knockdowns or go the takedown route en route to a finish. Preferably in rounds 1 and 2. I think that's kind of hard to do against a guy in Francisco Trinaldo. I actually do think he knocks him out, but I still don't think he scores all that well at 9,300. He's going to be very selective and careful and respectful of Trinaldo's skills. Now, the Brennan Allen one is a little interesting because I actually really like Brennan Allen. So I agree with you where Christoph Jocko is a guy that I just always pick against, that poor Jocko. But Brennan Allen for me is an underdog that I'm pretty confident in with his skill set, his striking skill set, his grappling skill set. He has been knocked out in the past, but good thing for him, Jocko doesn't knock anybody out. He could find a knockout because of Allen's questionable chin, but I also think that Allen is rightfully in play to knock him out en route to a TKO or submission finish. So 7,900, I'm really aggressive on Brennan Allen today. And if he doesn't come through, most of my lineups are shot just because the volatility underneath Brennan Allen is vast. So I was okay, I feel pretty confident Brennan Allen's going to get this done. Whereas the other ones are complete dart throws. And exposure plays for me.
Is there any other limit exposure fights for you that I didn't mention?
I mean, I am a little bit lighter on the main event than I thought I would be, just because if Mackenzie Dern struggles to take down Yan Xiaonan early and then gets a second, third, or fourth or whatever, a later finish, she could possibly not pay off that price tag. And she's not like a dominant wrestler. So it could just be one takedown en route to a submission finish. That's all she needs. So I'm a little light on her just because I'm light on both sides, just because I think this happens in rounds 2 and 3, where some of these other 9,000 options have clear round 1 and 2 upside.
By the way, I do see those super chats. We can get those super chats here in a moment. Now, there are 3 fights for me that are priority fights. One is the heavyweight matchup of Latifi and Oleinik. I mean, look, you mentioned about the can he get around the neck of Latifi? 2, I think the first fight of the night, I think is a priority fight of Costa and Canetti. And number 3, I'll put Barcelos and Jones as a priority fight for me.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I made a group on stokastic.fantasycruncher.com. I really liked the Costa Canetti fight. In addition to that, I like the Latifi and Oleinik fight. The Davis and Slavaclaus fight is one where I am just all over it. I think that Mike Davis possesses some of the best skills on this card. Exceptional striker, sneaky wrestling upside as well, showcased in the Mason Jones performance. And I really think that if he blends it, he should be able to take Slavaclaus down, because I'm telling you, Slavaclaus, despite being a team alpha male, he's starting to defend takedowns, but Mark Chikasi landed 34 takedowns against him. And I don't know, I'm getting to Slavaclaus probably in the 25%, 30% range, but I am super aggressive on Mike Davis today. It's a fight that I just see fantasy points galore. And then the final one, I would agree with you, Raoni Barcelos and Trevin Jones. Feels like somebody's getting knocked out.
Yeah, this is, you mentioned about that Mike Davis and Borashev matchup. To me, it's more about, we have seen Mike Davis score 5 takedowns in his last 2 fights, 3 of 9 in his last fight, excuse me. So to me, and someone asked me earlier, who do you really like 8,600 below? And I said, Mike Davis is the one that sticks out to me just because of Slavaclaus. He gets taken down every fight. And and he does tend to get up to his feet. He is a kickboxing coach there at Team Alpha Male. That's one where I really like in terms of that one. But, and also, by the way, mention about some FanDuel value plays, Yan Xiaonan, Trinaldo at $8. It's just a salary saving situation. Oleinik at $14 because of just the GPP upside. In terms of that, of course, if you want to get access to all the great tools and data we have over at Stokastic.com, you got to sign up for a Stokastic Plus pass. And of course, we got a special going on for you right now, where for new users, you can get 50% off your first week of any weekly package. All you got to do is use that promo code MMALBL. Once again, it's promo code MMALBL for 50% off your first week of any weekly package we have over at Stokastic.com. It is absolutely a great time to join Stokastic. Of course, NFL in full swing. NBA is right around the corner. And when you talk about our MMA product, that Top Fire tool is the tool that I'm looking at each and every week when I'm developing my lines. Pete is doing the same thing. I'm looking at that top 6%, comparing that to ownership is a big thing for me. Where can I potentially find a leverage spot here on today's slate? So great offer. Take advantage of that offer right now. Use that promo code MMALBL. 50% off your first week of any Stokastic Plus weekly pass. Now, this is for new users only. Fantasy Cruncher is not in that. You got to add to your account. Highly recommend doing that. I will tell you, when I was doing my crunches, it was giving me a ton of Yan Xiaonan, so I had to go in there and make Fantasy Cruncher. Hey, I do not want 60% Yan Xiaonan.
Yeah, I mean, the 5 rounds is going to boost it in the cruncher all day long. But yeah, I'm not the biggest Yan Xiaonan fan today. It's chalk that I'm kind of just swerving away from today. So we shall see how it works.
Mention a question we got over to Scored from Qstown. Says Costa or Brown. That's an easy one for me. It's Randy Costa.
Yeah, I say Randy Costa. Salary play, one of the best round 1 guys out there. It can work against them too, but recognize that his round one odds, if you investigate his record, are phenomenal, especially against a soft competition.
Loves them head kicks.
Oh yeah, he does. He for sure does.
Loves those head kicks. Let's get some super chats here. First up, we got Sam Pierce. Said, hey guys, saw the weigh-ins yesterday. The picture of Chanel from the weigh-ins, his right arm seems a lot smaller than his left. Injury or edge?
I don't know. All I know is that he's small compared to Randy Brown. And I haven't necessarily been like following his body from weigh in to weigh in. I just think from a range standpoint, he's going to struggle with the range and the height of Randy Brown, especially because Brown utilizes straight punches pretty well.
I would look at potentially that could be an injury. Something maybe happened to one of his arms. I recall a conversation I had with Mike Hamill.
Yeah.
The fight tonight on the Bellator card, and it'll be his first fight in 10 months. He had shoulder surgery shoulder surgery. And also had on his bicep. And he said, if you look at my last fight, when I flex, you can kind of see I had issues. And he said, because I didn't realize how bad it was till after the fight was over. But that could very well be a injury type situation. Sam's next super chat says, best DK captain in my previous super chat. Am I crazier that Ronaldo's arm seem injured? It's so much smaller than his left. We kind of touched on that. I'll go over into the captain contest over here over on DraftKings, which starts at 5:20 Eastern time, by the way. So you'll have no Randy Costa, so he puts out there. I really don't want to get to the $15,000 Sadiq Youssef. I just think that's a really high price to pay. I understand why he is priced that high. Barcelos, I think, is interesting at 13-2, just if he can get the fight to the ground, submission upside. Mackenzie Dern, same exact situation. She got to get the fight to the ground. Mike Davis at 11,700, I think, would be a popular play for a lot of people just because of that takedown upside.
Yeah, I love Mike Davis. And Howney, if you told me Howney Barcelos is going to go out there and grapple Trevin Jones, who even has a wrestling background, I'm picking Howney all day. And he would be a fighter I'd be planting my flag on. I just think that he's fallen in love with his hands and is used to being the better boxer. And he is the better boxer. But there are some mistakes made on the feet where I do think a Trevin Jones shelling and countering could possibly hurt. So we shall see. But that's a fight I'm targeting like crazy. And Jason, we got 300 people in here. If we can get over 100 likes, it would really make me feel better. And that would be great.
I feel like Pete's going to be laying in bed, just IV douse the Gatorade, just watch these fights.
Yeah, that is going to happen as soon as this show is over.
Jorge with Super Chat, appreciate it, because which fights would you stay away, and do you have any fighters considered as a lock or near lock on lineups? I kind of mentioned about the two fights that are stay aways for me, Jocko and Allen. The other one being the co-main event, Brown and Ronaldo. There's not a fighter I would lock in. I mean, like if I was going to lock in anyone, I'd probably be Randy Costa.
Yeah,
but I've labeled out already in the show. There are some concerns I have about Randy Costa.
Yeah, for sure. I have plenty of concerns as well. Now, let me ask you a question. And let's see if you are kind of on the same page as me. I'm really light on a fighter, and it's a fighter I was big on, and then he's coming to the UFC and he's completely disappointed. And that fighter is Felipe Lins. I am not the biggest Felipe Lins guy today. I think that Maxim Grishin is talented on the feet. I think he can push him. He can contend on the feet. And Lins' cardio in his most recent bout against Misha Serkinov, Marcin Prachnio, kind of made me hop off the Felipe Lins train completely. He went to the takedown well, but I think that Maxim Grishin could actually, have a solid performance. So I'm not the biggest Felipe guy. Are you?
I'm not either. I've never been a big Felipe Lins guy, just from a fancy perspective.
Okay, good.
Joe's got a super chat. He says, big field GPP, Randy Costa or Hani Barcelos. Because it's a big field GPP, I would more want to get to Barcelos just being a ownership play. And just looking at ownership on those two guys. So Costa's getting about 9% more than Hani Barcelos is. I think that Randy Costa, because I think a lot of people are going to look at that first round upside of looking to get to Randy Costa.
Yeah, I'd probably stick with Costa for me. Just because I like them equally, but I'm trying to evaluate their opponents. And I view Guido Canetti significantly lower than I view Trevin Jones, even though I think Trevin Jones is basically a fraud and he's found luck. And sometimes, when preparation meets opportunity, you can be lucky. And we have seen that he stayed prepared throughout the COVID era and picked up 2 huge wins over talented guys like Timur Valiev, Mario Batista, fighters he should not be beating, in my opinion. So props to him. He lands a big shot against Raoni Barcelos. He could sleep him. I mean, Victor Henry was hurting Raoni Barcelos a lot in their matchup.
Appreciate everyone tuning in here for the MMA Live for Lock show here on Stokastic.com. And if you're watching us and you're in Ohio, sports betting will be coming soon to your state. Register for FanDuel Sportsbook right now by clicking the link in the video description below, and you'll get up to $100 in free bets. Of course, that is just for Ohio residents there. As my home state, we're not quite there yet. It's a legal battle going on here in my home state, but places like PrizePicks are things that we can't do in terms of that one there. Get some other super chats in here. Corey Randall, thoughts on Sorolenko versus Chandler for DraftKings?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a fight I got to a decent amount. I think that Stolyarenko is going to win just because of Chandler being green a little bit. She's a purple belt. I think Stolyarenko will hunt submissions, as evidence in her win against Jessica Rose Clark. She is like the armbar queen, armbar runner up to, Ronda Rousey. And, she knows what she's good at. As long as she can not play off of her back, play guard off of her back, losing minutes in an MMA fight, I like her chances here. So I can't tell you what her game plan is going to be. I think that Chelsea's going to be aggressive coming forward, and we need Stolyarenko to match the aggressiveness, possibly put Chandler on the back foot and mix in a takedown en route to takedown city or possibly a submission finish. But it's women's MMA, and I made the rule for us. You can never count out an underdog in women's MMA, regardless if it's her debut or not. And she's from 209, so Stockton, California. So we shall see if the fight goes the way I'm, expecting. So it's a Stolyarenko play for me.
I want to mention something that came up earlier in the chat from Mason. Said, would it be interesting if you had the ability to late swap in UFC DFS? So I'll tell you some interaction I had with DraftKings. This is back in June, where basically I kind of brought this up. And the response was, if there are any changes coming to the product, we will sure to let all of our customers know. But as now, MMA DFS contests will continue with the same rules and features that you have been using. It wouldn't surprise me if that happens. I want to say, I think maybe FanDuel will start to do this, where they're noting start times on fights of not putting everything at 7 o'clock. I would expect that at some point that happens, but maybe that's more of a back end IT side for DraftKings more than anything else.
I think that makes the game of MMA DFS completely different. I have to tell you. Now, the one way I would like it is if we have a late scratch of a fight, and then that's when you're able to pivot to somebody else. But as far as just not locking the fighters until the fight happens, I feel like that's going to make duplication is going to be, more common. I think it's just going to be a mess, to be honest.
Ryan asking, is Costa at MVP too chalky on FanDuel today? No, actually, he's not. It's kind of, I was looking at ownership projections, and I was actually surprised that he wasn't the chalk in the MVP. I mean, I understand why people would look at Dern, 5 rounds to work with, but I would have thought because of that first round upside with Randy, that number would have been a little higher.
Yeah, I agree.
Jesse Ronson or Brendan Allen? That's an interesting one.
Brendan Allen for me. I mean, I'm getting to Jesse Ronson and I'm picking him to beat his opponent, but it's hard to have a lot of faith in Jesse Ronson when he completely looked terrible against Rafa Garcia. So it's Rafa's good. Rafa will push you in the takedown and grappling department, but I don't know. Jesse just looked lost at times. And I know he got kneed illegally throughout the bout, but it's a Brendan Allen play.
Yeah. Let's see here. Get some other questions in here that have come in the chat. Aiden say gonna fade Sadiq Youssef. I went fade Sadiq. The interesting part about Sadiq Youssef, obviously Don stepping in here as a late replacement. Sadiq was supposed to fight Kijikaze, which obviously would have been a massive fight for him. And Sadiq just came out and said, yeah, I need a payday.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
Pete, you gotta love the brutal honesty of like, hey, you know what? I know this fight does nothing for me ranking wise, but yeah, I need a paycheck.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about fighting, right? Like you know, fights get fizzled out all the time. Fights get pushed back. Opponents miss weight. Next thing you know, like you're not getting your money, or you're only getting half of it. It's completely frustrating. It's part of the game, unfortunately. And if you know, when you fight for the UFC or Bellator, and they have endless amounts of people on, you know, on hand that they can talk to and try to get you a fight. Like local MMA is tough for them to find you a late replacement. But at the end of the day, man, like it's nice to get a paycheck en route to doing what we love.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate part about it. Last fighter in on FanDuel, Brandon Allen or Chelsea Chandler.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Brendan Allen. I've seen him fight in the UFC. I haven't seen Chelsea Chandler fight in the UFC. I think she's green in some areas. I think she's talented. She pushes forward, throws hard punches, and if she gets in top position, she can win rounds and win minutes. But it's Brendan Allen for me.
The one thing with Chandler that will be interesting to see, you know, with the rehydration process, she's a 145er. Storolenko to take this fight, she said, hey, I'll do it at 140 pounds. She's a 35 pounder. Armbar from guard is live. Chandler does train with Cesar Gracie, so you would imagine from the jiu-jitsu aspect, she should be fine in that aspect. I would agree with you. Probably I would go with Brandon Allen in that spot as well. Let's see here. Ronson versus Silva, the top priority fight. That was not a fight I considered as a priority for me.
No, I don't trust either one of these guys. And perhaps that's why he or she is prioritizing them, because it could be a high score for the winner and a low score for the loser. It's just really difficult for me to put my finger on who the heck it's going to be. I actually think some other matchups are better to target, truthfully.
Youssef or Dern last piece?
It's Dern for me. The price, man. The price is restrictive. It doesn't allow you to get to a ton of combinations. Now Don Shainis has been knocked down a lot in his career as well, and he was on wobbly legs in one of the fights I was playing back, and Sadiq hits really hard. So I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks him out. It's probably the most likely outcome in that fight, but he needs to do it early, or, you know, accrue multiple knockdowns in order to pay off that price tag, I would think, unless every other 9,000 option just completely craps to bed.
Of course, this is MMA Live 4 Lock, getting ready here for UFC Vegas number 61. We are sponsored by OddsShopper. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less with OddsShopper. With hundreds of bets featured daily, OddsShopper gives you the edge you need betting player props, game lines across all sports with expected win percentages and ROIs included. OddsShopper features multiple projection methods, which will help you make the best bets available on the market. OddsShopper also features a parlay builder with optimized parlays and a arbitrary tool that identifies risk-free guaranteed profit bets that will make you across all sportsbook. What are you waiting for? Click the link in the video description below to sign up for free with OddsShopper to start making smarter bets now. There were definitely some prop bets that on the MMA side of the equation did stick out to me as well. Mentioned about another super chat that just came in here from Sam. Sam, yeah, have to be safe and sound here. You know, all is well here where I live here in the South Tampa area. So I appreciate you there. Who scores more DraftKings points in a decision? Randy Brown or Honey Barcelos?
Barcelos. I think he throws at a really high volume. He has phenomenal jiu-jitsu. And we have seen Trevin Jones get bullied. So for me, it's Raoni Barcelos. I like the comparison. I don't hate it at all.
I mentioned I just saw this comment come up in our Discord chat about Alexei Oleinik's last fight of Jared Vanderaa was having a very good fight with him, and then for whatever reason, he decided to go to the ground with him.
He's an idiot. He's that's what I'm saying, man. MMA is crazy. So especially in heavyweight MMA and women's MMA, I'm never going to cross off the underdogs from here on out. Look at Jake Collier, absolutely smoking Chris Barnett, and I'm like, yes. I had the biggest planted flag on Jake Collier, and then Chris Barnett just completely comes back, and I'm like, is this really happening right now? And sure enough, it did.
That's what makes MMA DFS so tough.
It's very tough.
I mean, you think about, like, you know, if we're talking about the typical sports, football, baseball, basketball, like, it's not, you know, I mean, yeah, you can have a home run that comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, your guy has 14 plus points. But in MMA, like, one punch, one takedown completely changes the fight where your fighter's never out of it. I mean, how many times that, you know, like, I think of, man, this is really going back in the day. You remember when Tim Boetsch was just getting schooled by Yushin Okami over in a Japan card, and then Boetsch just rocks him and knocks him out in the third round?
Yeah. So I think the most recent one I can think of is Kamaru Usman lineups. Kamaru Usman lineups are creeping up. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting pretty, baby. Then all of a sudden, Leon Edwards throws that head kick, and I'm like, that's going to hurt. And sure enough, I dropped significantly, and like a whole massive train of Leon Edwards lineups just completely, you know, they overtook the entire top of the competition. So, yeah, I mean, it ain't over till it's over.
Thoughts on John Castaneda? The writing says, I'm thinking he's the safest pick on DFS solid fighter, but I don't know. What do y'all think? Can he get finished? Can he get finished early?
I do like Castaneda a lot, actually. And I'm not big on Willie Cat. I'm sure Willie Cat is better than what he showed in his debut, but I'm not a Santos guy today. I'm just not. He's dangerous early, but I don't trust his skill set. He's reckless. He's wild. And I actually think that Castaneda is a sneaky talent, man. I really like him. And I agree with that. Castaneda is a guy at 8,800, despite being a bantamweight. I think that his well-rounded skill set could be going overlooked. Back-to-back finishes, first round over Eddie Wineland, scoring 117, third round submission over Miles Johns, who I hold in such higher regard than Daniel Willie Cat Santos. So I'm in agreement with you. I like Castaneda quite a bit.
Get a couple of super chats in here. Lecce 420, favorite single entry captain on FanDuel.
I'd probably say
I would probably go Costa.
Yeah, I probably would too.
Just because it's that first round upside, man. That's the thing that really what intrigues me about him. Next super chat here is from Sam Pierce, says roster construction question. In a 20 max captain on DK, how many different captains do you use to build your lineups?
I'm not a big captain guy. I tend to pivot to the captain contest if my lineups suck for the main slate. So, but what I would recommend is probably 3, because in a 20 max, you got to be very careful, and you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You should find two with 10 lineups each, which makes a lot of sense, or 3 lineups. 3 captains where you are kind of just mixing it up. You get any more than that, and you're probably not going to find the correct combination.
Jorge with their super chat. Appreciate it, man. Top 3 cheap fighters on DraftKings.
Okay, you ready? Let me pull it.
All right.
Up. Okay, top 3 cheap fighters. Brendan Allen 1. Alexei Oleinik 2. Trevin Jones 3. That's it. That's the top 3 for me for the cheap fighters.
Yeah, I would be looking. Oleinik and Jones would be kind of my top 2 just because of the GPP upside with them. If I was going to label a third one for me as a cheap play, Uh, probably Brand Allen.
Okay.
My fellow Arc says, he goes, I want Chandler, but the way Julia went from, oh, you don't handshake to 100 in the weigh-in face-off makes me wonder, which are you picking?
I'm picking Stolyarenko. Could care less about how the weigh-ins went. I actually think that's how you could tinker with your lineups and end up screwing yourself. So I'm going to rely on fight film, and I'm going to think that Stolyarenko is going to be able to do it, but untrustworthy, 100%.
I remember I had a fighter once tell me, they said when we're doing weigh-ins, I want to always handshake my opponent because I want to see how strong their handshake is.
So dumb. I mean, I guess like if that really like gives you confidence, like, oh my God, he felt weak. Yeah, like you're grasping for straws. Like sizing somebody up is different, or like, you know, if you happen to like, I don't know, give each other a hug or something weird like that, or dap each other up, then maybe you'd be like, all right, he seems not strong, but I don't know, a handshake. But I don't know. Fighters are really, really like, some fighters are super weird when it comes to traditions, and I think it's all BS. And it comes down to, you know, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not spiritual, but they're constantly trying to do things in the correct order.
Superstitious.
Thank you, superstitious. I think superstitions are just another form of fear in a way.
You know this. I interview fighters all the time. And there's sometimes when fighters say stuff to me that just in my head, I start shaking my head. Happened about a week ago.
I was just going to ask you about that. Go ahead.
Which interview do you think it is?
I'm going to say Max Roshkov all day long.
Yes.
See, damn, do I know?
How he says he doesn't watch film on his opponents. I'm like, in my head, I'm going, what?
Yeah, I mean, some people, if you think about it from a wrestling tournament standpoint, right? If you come from a wrestling background, you're just going to wrestle with the guy across from you. But when it comes to MMA, like, I do think that you should see a tiny bit, at least your coaches. So I'm a big advocate of watching film for my guys and myself, sometimes too much.
Yeah, when he said that to me, I was like, holy cow. I was just pulling up the Bellator odds. I want to see what is the line on that one. Hamill minus 120. I really like that one. If you can find a Hamill wins round 3 prop, I think that's one I look at, because I also talked to Mike Hamill, and okay, paraphrasing what he said is he believes there's a lot of quit in Max, and he's going to make him quit.
Oh, they're fighting? I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah, they're fighting tonight on the prelims.
Oh Lord, Mike Hamill's good.
I will tell you an interesting underdog on the Bellator prelims is Nick Brown at plus 215 taking on Islam Maidov.
Yeah, I think Nick Brown's good.
That one's an interesting one to me. I mean, in terms of the favorite, minus 155 for Patricio in the main event, I think is a nice number. Could be a good parlay piece if you're maybe looking to parlay some things to the UFC and Bellator together.
Strangest fight ever, AJ McKee, Spike Carlisle. What the hell are you guys doing with that matchup?
I was told the Pitbull team was never offered the trilogy matchup.
I mean, I don't know. I thought McKee looked terrible in the last fight, like terrible. And I actually think that a guy in Spike Carlisle, if he's on top of McKee, can pose some problems. I wouldn't be, I mean, like, plus, what is he? Plus 400? I
mean, look, AJ from a talent perspective should win that fight, but it's not the easiest of fights. I'll point it that way. But yeah, like from a pure fan of combat sports, like I don't want to. I mean, like Pitbull and Borac should be a fun fight, but like from a fight aspect of me sitting home on Saturday night, I would much rather see AJ McKee, Patricio Pitbull 3 as opposed to the fights we're getting tonight. Even though I'll say this, I think comparing the UFC and Bellator card, I think the Bellator card is a better overall card.
All day long. It is. And I'll tell you the one thing that's helping McKee is how terrible Spike Carlisle's cardio is. So like, even if he has a bad round 1 and 2, live betting standpoint, I'll be working, so I can't do that. But yeah, I mean, McKee should win.
Man, live betting, that's the way to go when you're talking about MMA, whether we're talking about the UFC, we're talking about Bellator.
Ooh.
If you can play some live bets, that's totally the way to go there. Now, one of the things that Pete and I love to see, we want to see you go into the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Of course, you know you got to be rocking that Stokastic avatar on your DFS profile. Tweet your win, so add Stokastic HOF when you finish in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. You'll win a free month of Stokastic plus Platinum. Terms and conditions do apply. And of course, you can only win that one time per year. Looking at some people that have gone into the Stokastic Hall of Fame over the past couple of days. Congratulations here. Brainerd DFS finishing 3rd in a showdown contest at NFL. Kudos to you. Also, we got Jacob taking down 1st place there. Also over there in a showdown contest in NFL. T-Pack taking down 1st place over there in a NFL showdown contest over on DraftKings. Kyle taking down 1st place there in a showdown contest as well. John taking down 1st place over there in the NFL. And also Eli taking down 1st place in a MLB contest. So kudos to everyone that's gone to the Stokastic Hall of Fame over the past couple of days. Want to see you go in the Stokastic Hall of Fame here today with UFC Vegas number 61. Of course, if you got any questions, you can leave those in the chat. Get some other questions in here. Mr. Grapefruit, I am totally with you. I wish Bellator cards on DraftKings because here would be the issue with Bellator cards.
You could roster me. That would be cool.
Well, you know what you would do? I would just stack the prelims.
Yeah.
Because we know what those prelims are all about.
Yeah. I wonder if I ever approach 9,500 territory in some of my fights. I wonder.
Let me see if I can find the archives of.
I don't think they have any odds on any of the times that I've fought, but perhaps I'm wrong. While you're doing that, I want to hit on a couple questions. Aiden in chat says, Pete, Costa sub 10-1. Is it live at all? I don't really think so. Truthfully, I don't really think that it is. Randy Costa's original coach is Joe Lozon, and I know that he's extensively worked with him, but I don't know what he's really doing in Florida outside of hitting pads and striking. So I wouldn't be targeting that. I would probably, from a prop bet standpoint, look to target Mackenzie Dern via submission. Sits at -110. I really like that, or at least that's what it was a couple of days ago. And then Stolyarenko, her best path to victory is finding an armbar via submission. Sits at +300. So two bets that I would probably pivot to a little bit better than that 10-1 Costa sub.
How about Mike Davis wins via decision +250?
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Let's see what is the Barcelos submission prop? Wow, this is crazy.
Aiden, what is it?
+600.
Yeah, I think Aiden mentioned that. I'm hoping that's what happens, because if he takes him down, his ground game is disgusting.
How do you not take a flyer on that one?
Yeah, I'm probably going to do that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta put that there. Of course, come up here later on today. We got MLB live for lock. Those guys will get you ready for tonight's MLB slate. Of course, you got any questions, you can line those up in chat right now, whether it's over here on YouTube, also in Discord. I've got the Discord chat up there as well. So if you got any questions, be sure to line that up. Sam mentions Shaynis wins via decision. One of the things in all reality, this is a win-win situation for Don Shaynis. You're going to get another fight in the UFC by stepping up to take this fight. Sadiq Yusuff is the fighter that has everything to lose here. This is where a situation where you might see Don, being a little more aggressive than typically he normally would be.
Yeah, and it's all about balancing the nerves, right? Like, this is a massive step up in competition for Don Shaynis, but it's also an opportunity. And the best way I can think about it is when Calvin Kattar was on the outside of the UFC and was given the opportunity to debut against Andre Fili, I believe. So, and then he went in there and ended up stealing that victory. So it doesn't, just because fighters are not inside the UFC does not mean that they cannot pick up a win over a UFC veteran. It's rare, but like Victor Henry did it against Raoni Barcelos. So like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, don't cross it off. I think that Sadiq Yusuff should be in +500 territory. You start approaching, I mean, minus 500, you start approaching minus 1,000. I think that's absolutely nuts for an MMA fight.
You know, one of the things I heard someone else bring this up, and I'll get your take being a fighter.
Yeah.
You're a fighter making your UFC debut. Do you think you'd be more nervous fighting in an empty UFC Apex or in front of a 15,000 seat arena?
I don't know. I think everybody's different, truthfully. It comes down to, do you feed off the crowd or do you see people and get a little bit nervous? I don't know. I would imagine the empty arena would be a little bit better, personally. I know you can hear everything, but like it's kind of similar to preliminary bouts on Bellator. Like almost nobody there for some of them, especially if you're a post-lim. So I would say probably with no crowd. Now, is there still no crowd? Is that like a thing, or is it we don't know? Or
I've heard rumblings.
Okay. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Let's just say the Zuckerberg rumblings are very so when it initially came out, I reached out to some people that I trust in the industry. And what I was told was the Zuckerberg rumor was the rumor that was flying around all Vegas. I've heard rumors that it's related to testing out the metaverse with Facebook. I've heard that. I've heard rumblings of Zuckerberg is bringing 200 Meta employees with them, and he's basically rented it out.
What is this?
You know,
Dude, what is this going to be like the most like? It's so dumb, in my opinion. Like, we're going to have a celebrity.
The other thing I've heard is, so you know Zuckerberg is like he does some sort of training. That McKenzie Dern is his favorite fighter.
I said that on Thursday. I'm like, maybe he's got the hots for McKenzie. It could be. I mean, can't really blame him there.
Like,
but
I talk about perception versus reality.
Shoot your shot, Mark. Shoot your shot.
You remember the perception a couple of years ago McKenzie Dern was about, it was all about weigh-in day? That's not even a conversation anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, you're right. Yeah. Chat is ridiculous right now.
Yes. Yeah, very ridiculous. By the way, if you told me I could only watch one fighter today, do you
Mike
think
Davis.
You know, it's on the Bellator card.
Oh yeah. Who?
Aaron Pico.
He's fighting too?
Yeah, he's fighting Jeremy Kennedy.
Oh, damn, that's a hard fight for him.
It's good.
Kennedy.
Fight.
That's a good fight. Kennedy's a monster. Super underrated.
Pico is so damn good, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, when he started to kind of figure out, and like we talk about this all the time of, you know, like, I think Randy Costa could be a perfect example of this, of how much can a fighter evolve between fights. And you've really seen with Pico over the years of being able to blend everything together. Yeah. We all know his wrestling. And it's one of those things of when these fighters do evolve and they make those physical changes inside the training room, that there may be times that you sit there and go, holy cow, look what fighter X did. They just look completely different. I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah. And I think that time off is sometimes viewed in a negative light. And I actually think it can be beneficial for development. I like to think that I have significantly improved since the last time that I fought, like tremendously. And I do think that you can put that towards a lot of fighters, like even Mike Davis fighting only a year ago. I bet you we're going to see a better improved version of him. For like Pico, he probably doesn't wrestle as much as he should. Like he really should wrestle more. If he wrestled more, past couple fights he has, but like that's where you're going to separate yourself from the pack.
The only thing, and I heard this listening to McCarthy and Thompson's podcast, apparently there's been some drama in his personal life.
Okay.
And he's very much a family man. So how much, I mean, and you know how much, that's the one thing about this fight game. And it's another aspect of why MMA DFS is difficult is you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. And you don't know what's going on in somebody's head either. Like Cowboy Cerrone is a perfect example of that. My buddy Cowboy. And, you know, the preparation's always there. The skills are always there. And then he could just not be mentally there, or he could be battling demons. We don't know.
Ryan asking good MVP on FanDuel tonight. You know, I think you're going to look at, to me, my top two would be Randy Costa and McKenzie Dern. Now Dern having 5 rounds to work with. The one question with Dern is, how does she get on the back of Yan Xiaonan? Can she? Now, her takedown accuracy is god awful.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up here.
Pretty terrible.
McKenzie's Dern, 9% takedown accuracy.
Yeah. I'll tell you what is, she doesn't necessarily need a takedown though. Like, she can pull guard. She can jump for a flying triangle, flying armbar. She's kind of threatened with a Kimura, like where she just completely ripped it and fell to her back as well. So all it takes is Yan Xiaonan to give her back slightly, and Mackenzie Dern's going to, climb on her back like a backpack, and there we go. So I'm not getting too cute. I'm favoring Mackenzie Dern.
Someone asked about who's the best candidate for Takedown City today. It's got to be Mike Davis. Got to be, just because of the matchup. Like,
yeah,
the smart game plan would be for him to just, even though he does love to strike, the smart game plan would be try to take the fight to the ground.
Yeah, I think Mike Davis is it. I also think that we could be looking at, if Raoni Barcelos decides to grapple, and if Guido Canetti survives Randy Costa's first round, those two fighters kind of stick out to me from a takedown perspective.
Tank Forever asking about best MMA DFS narrative today. I don't know if there's one that sticks out to me.
Mackenzie Dern showing off from Mark Zuckerberg, maybe.
I think her husband might have a little problem with that.
Yeah, that's true.
I believe her husband's a jiu-jitsu guy.
Jiu-jitsu, well. Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, what narratives we got? Old man Olenek? Nothing.
Old man Trinaldo?
Yeah, we ain't got no narratives today. I don't believe.
All right. All right. Fire retirements. I'm setting the number 1.5 tonight. You taking under over?
Of what?
Fighter retirements.
What's the line?
1.5.
I'm saying under. Who the hell's going to retire?
Trinaldo and Olenek. I mean, come on. They are two prime candidates.
Those two guys can't let the sport go. They're going to fight till they're 50. And they ain't. No, I'm taking the under. Bad line. Wow. Watch it happen. Watch it happen.
No, watch me two other fighters. What are you thinking of? Like,
yeah,
I'm done.
Mike Davis, Sadiq Youssef. Like what?
Jesse Ronston?
Yeah. God dang. He was terrible last fight.
I mean, look, that's the reality. I feel like it's almost like every UFC show at this point.
Yeah.
It's like you take your bet on who you think the fighter most likely to retire is.
I would have probably said Jessica Penne would be up there too, but she's clearly off the card.
Yeah, I clearly remembered. I need to make sure all my lineups are set.
Yeah, you better do that. We got 3 minutes. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. You guys are the best. If you could hit that like button, get us over 150 likes. We don't want to play this card, but we are playing this card. So I hope that you guys are profitable and make some money. And if the regular slate doesn't work, that's when you pivot to the captain slate, or you just resort to sports betting. So all in all, I hope that we make some money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's. I mean, look, I think that under 8K range isn't awful in terms of fighters who have that GPP upside.
I mean, I think they have upside, but like, you don't feel good about any of them outside of Brendan Allen. Like, that's the guy I feel good about, but watch Jocko knock him out or something stupid.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't mind getting Yan Xiaonan. I don't mind getting to Trevin Jones. Even as a low end, Don Chance at a low end, I don't mind there. But I would more look at getting someone like a Trevin Jones just because of the GPP upside.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, I'm glad you agree with me.
Yeah. Joaquim Silva, MVP spot sleeper. I mean, goodness, that is a super low owned and a guy that I would not be trusting there. But I mean, go ahead. If you like it, do it.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, the Storolenko thing is, I mean, armbar from guard is completely live with her.
Yeah. Yeah, all day.
But it's just, you're always so fearful on that type of fight rostering. Even though, like, because of the price point, if a stoppage comes, good chance it is optimal.
Yep. And that's why I'm going to roster it.
Dylan, I would not go Randy Brown FanDuel MVP.
Yikes. Yeah, I mean, it's just, what's his price on FanDuel?
He is $22.
It's not bad. Honestly, he's worse on DraftKings. Slightly, but yeah.
Like, if you sat there and said, like, hey, that's going to be an ownership play, I totally get you from that aspect. I mean, like, looking at Randy Brown, wow. He's got 7% ownership in the MVP. That's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, I think he's a massive favorite. Naturally, people are just going to put massive favorites in the MVP spot, and rightfully so. I just think that Trinaldo's tough, man.
Yeah. Of course, we appreciate everyone tuning in here for MMA Live Before Lock. No UFC show next week. We're 2 weeks away. The Alexa Grasso headlining will be there on October 15th. So that's when myself and Pete will be back here for the strategy show and Live Before Lock. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. Be sure to stay tuned for MLB Live Before Lock. Starts here in 2 hours from now as those guys get you ready for tonight's MLB slate. Hopefully everyone has a great Saturday afternoon. We'll talk to you on 2 weeks here on the Stokastic MMA coverage.